Hi friends, welcome back to Whispers After Midnight. Tonight's story is called I Recognized Someone in a Dark Web Live Stream. It's about a late-night rabbit hole on the internet, a hidden live stream, and the horrifying moment someone realizes the person on screen isn't a stranger. So grab a snack, grab a blanket, turn the lights down low, and get comfortable. And if you enjoy scary stories like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what kind of stories you want to hear next. All right, let's get into tonight's story. I grew up in a town that most people couldn't find on a map. It was called Black Ridge, a small farming town tucked between rolling hills and dense forest in northern Pennsylvania. If you drove through it too fast, you'd miss the whole place in under 2 minutes. We had one main road, a gas station, a diner called Millie's, and a high school that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 1970s. Everyone knew everyone. If you skipped class, your parents knew before you got home. If you got in trouble, the entire town somehow heard about it by dinner. Nothing interesting ever happened there. At least that's what we all believed. Until my best friend disappeared. And years later, I saw him again. Not in person, but on a dark web live stream. Back then, though, we were just kids trying to survive high school. It was the late 90s, when the internet was still new and mysterious. Most houses still used dial-up connections that screamed like a dying robot whenever you tried to connect. Kids at school mostly used the internet for chat rooms or email. But one person understood it better than anyone else. My best friend, Noah Whitaker. Noah wasn't just smart. He was the kind of smart that made teachers nervous. While everyone else was learning basic computer classes, Noah was already building his own machines from scratch. His basement looked like something from a sci-fi movie. Old computer towers stacked against the wall, monitors glowing in the dark, cables everywhere. His parents didn't really understand what he was doing, but they figured if he stayed out of trouble and kept getting straight A's, it was fine. For us, though, Noah's basement was the best place in town. There were 4 of us who basically lived there. Me, Noah, Dylan Carter, and Marcus Hale. We'd known each other since middle school. Marcus was the loud one, always joking, always starting trouble. Dylan was the athlete of the group. Football, baseball, anything competitive. Noah was the genius, and I was somewhere in the middle. Most afternoons after school, we'd pile into Marcus's rusty pickup truck and head over to Noah's house. His parents worked late, so we had the basement to ourselves. Usually we'd play games, watch stupid videos, or argue about music. But sometimes Noah would show us things on the internet that felt different. Like one night during junior year. It was winter. Snow piled outside the basement windows while we sat inside eating cheap pizza. Noah was typing rapidly on one of his computers while 3 monitors glowed in front of him. Marcus leaned over his shoulder. "What are you doing now, hacker man?" Noah didn't look away from the screen. "Exploring," Marcus laughed. "You always say that like you're Indiana Jones or something." Noah finally turned his chair toward us. "You guys ever hear about the deep web?" Dylan shrugged. "Sounds fake." "No," Noah said. "It's real. Most of the internet isn't on Google." He pulled up a browser none of us had seen before. The screen went black. White text, random letters in the address bar. Marcus frowned. "Dude, what is this?" Noah smiled a little. Think of the internet like an iceberg. The stuff everyone uses, that's the top. He tapped the keyboard. Underneath it, there's a lot more. Strange websites started appearing. Forums with usernames that didn't make sense. Pages that had no logos, no ads, no company names, just text. Some of it was harmless. People talking about coding, encryption, or weird internet theories. But some of it felt off. Like we weren't supposed to be seeing it. Dylan shifted in his chair. This feels illegal. Noah shook his head. It's not illegal. It's just hidden. Marcus crossed his arms. Why hide a website? Noah leaned back in his chair. Privacy, secrets, people who don't want to be tracked. He paused, then said something that stuck with me for years. There are places online where someone can disappear. Marcus snorted. Yeah, okay. Like witness protection for nerds. But Noah didn't laugh. He just stared at the screen like it fascinated him. After that night, Noah started spending more and more time online. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. He'd always loved computers. But by senior year, something had changed. When we went over to his house, he barely noticed us. Multiple monitors filled with code, programs running, encrypted chat windows. Sometimes we'd walk into the basement, and he'd quickly close whatever he was looking at. Marcus noticed it too. One afternoon, he nudged me while Noah typed furiously. Dude's definitely doing some weird hacker stuff. Dylan laughed. He's gonna end up working for the CIA. But Noah didn't look like someone who was joking around. He looked obsessed. One night I asked him about it. It was just the two of us in the basement. The others had left early. You've been acting weird lately, I said. Noah shrugged without looking away from his monitor. Just learning things. Like what? He hesitated, then said quietly, parts of the internet most people don't know exist. That answer didn't make me feel better, but I didn't push it. A few weeks later, everything changed. It was a Friday night in February. Cold, snow everywhere. I was at home playing video games when my phone rang around 10:30. It was Dylan. You seen Noah tonight? He asked. No, why? His mom called me. She thinks he's with us. A weird feeling crept into my stomach. He's not here. Yeah, he's not with Marcus either. At first we didn't panic. Maybe Noah went somewhere by himself. But by midnight, his parents were calling everyone. By morning, the police were involved. They searched the woods behind his house. They checked the highway cameras. They questioned everyone at school. Nothing. No car missing. No note. No sign of a struggle. Noah Whitaker had simply vanished. Like he had stepped out of reality. For weeks, the town was in chaos. Search parties walked through miles of forest. Helicopters circled overhead. Missing posters covered every store window. Teachers cried during announcements. No one could believe it. Noah wasn't the kind of kid who ran away. He barely even left his house. Then the rumors started. Some people said he had gotten involved with dangerous hackers online. Others thought he found something illegal on the internet. Marcus swore someone had kidnapped him. But the police never found anything. Weeks turned into months. Eventually, the search slowed. Then it stopped. By summer, people barely mentioned Noah anymore. His locker was cleaned out. His parents moved away quietly one morning. No goodbye. No answers. just gone. The official report eventually said what everyone already feared: missing, presumed dead. Graduation came that June. Marcus left for trade school. Dylan went to college for football. I got accepted to a small university a couple hours away. Life kept moving forward. But something about Noah's disappearance always stayed in the back of my mind, especially the things he had said. There are places online where someone can disappear. At the time, we thought he meant hiding from the government or something. But years later, I realized he meant something much darker. A year passed. Prom night, graduation parties, summer jobs. The town slowly forgot about Noah Whitaker. But I never did. And right before I left for college, something happened that pulled me back into the hidden part of the internet Noah had shown us. It started with a girl I met at a bar. A girl who stayed up until 4 a.m. browsing the dark web. And one night, she showed me something I wish I had never seen. Because months later, while exploring that same hidden network alone, I would stumble onto a live stream. A live stream where someone was being auctioned off to the highest bidder. And for a split second, the camera turned. The person on the screen looked straight at it, and I felt my stomach drop. Because I recognized him. It was Noah. Part 2. The girl who was awake at 4 a.m. By the time prom season rolled around, life in Blackridge had mostly gone back to normal, at least on the surface. People had stopped talking about Noah Whitaker. His missing posters had faded on telephone poles and bulletin boards until the rain and sun erased them completely. New stories replaced the old one. That's how small towns worked. Something terrible would happen. Everyone would obsess over it for a while. Then eventually, people moved on, but for those of us who actually knew Noah, it never really went away. Prom night felt strange without him. We had always joked that Noah would show up wearing some ridiculous rented tuxedo and spend the whole night explaining how the DJ's equipment worked. Instead, his name was barely mentioned. Dylan went with a girl from the volleyball team. Marcus somehow convinced a junior to go with him. I went alone. Honestly, I didn't care much about prom. I spent most of the night hanging out near the back of the gym, counting down the weeks until graduation. After that night, everything moved fast. Graduation came. Marcus left for trade school in Pittsburgh. Dylan headed off to college on a partial football scholarship. And I spent the early part of summer working long shifts at a hardware store just outside town. By August, I'd be leaving for college 2 hours away. For the first time in my life, everything felt uncertain. Blackridge had always been predictable. Now it felt temporary. One night in early July, Marcus convinced me to drive out to a bar about 20 minutes outside town. Technically, it wasn't legal for us to be there, but the place didn't check IDs very carefully. The bar was dimly lit, loud, and smelled like cheap beer and cigarettes. Country music played from an old jukebox while locals crowded around the pool tables. I almost turned around and left. Then I saw her. She was sitting alone at the end of the bar, scrolling on a laptop, which already made her stand out. No one brought a laptop to a place like that. Marcus noticed her too. He nudged me with his elbow. Well, that's different. I shrugged. Maybe she's working. Marcus grinned. Only one way to find out. Before I could stop him, he walked right up and started talking to her. I expected her to ignore him. Instead, she laughed. A few minutes later, Marcus waved me over. "This is Lena," he said. She closed the laptop halfway and smiled. "Hi." She was probably a couple years older than us. Dark hair, sharp eyes, the kind of expression that made it seem like she was always analyzing everything around her. "What were you working on?" Marcus asked. She shrugged casually. "Internet stuff." That answer somehow made me more curious. Over the next hour, we talked about random things. Music, school, where we were from. She wasn't from Black Ridge originally. She had moved to a nearby town a year earlier. But something about her felt different, like she was always a few steps ahead in the conversation. Before we left that night, she gave me her number. Marcus wouldn't stop grinning during the drive home. "You're welcome." Over the next few weeks, Lena and I started seeing each other more often. At first, it was normal. Movies, late-night drives, meeting up at diners after my shift at the hardware store. But there was always one thing that stood out about her. She barely slept. Or at least it seemed that way. Sometimes I'd text her at midnight and she'd reply instantly. Other times I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and see that she was online. One night I stayed over at her place. It was a small apartment above a convenience store in a nearby town. We watched movies until late and eventually fell asleep. At least I did. When I woke up, the room was dark. For a moment I thought it was still nighttime. Then I saw the clock, 4:07 a.m. And Lena wasn't in bed. I heard faint typing coming from the other room. Curious, I got up and walked toward the living room. Her laptop screen lit up the darkness. She sat at the kitchen table, completely focused. Lines of strange text filled the screen. Black background, white letters, random addresses that looked like nonsense. For a second, I just stood there watching. Then I asked, "What are you doing?" She jumped slightly and turned around. "Oh, you're awake. What is that?" She hesitated, then slowly turned the laptop so I could see it. "Ever heard of the dark web?" The words instantly made something stir in my memory. Noah's voice from years earlier. There are places online where someone can disappear. "I've heard the term," I said, "but I don't really know what it is." Lena leaned back in her chair. "Most people don't." She began explaining things in a way that sounded eerily similar to the way Noah had once described the deep web. Search engines only showed a small portion of the internet. There were hidden networks, encrypted browsers, anonymous marketplaces, forums that couldn't be accessed normally, places where identities didn't exist. While she talked, she navigated through strange websites. None of them looked professional, just plain pages filled with usernames and text. "You can buy almost anything here," she said casually. That comment made me uneasy. "Like what?" She shrugged. "Information, fake IDs, data leaks, stolen stuff." Then she added quietly, "Sometimes worse." She clicked away from the page before I could ask. I felt the same uncomfortable curiosity I had felt years ago in Noah's basement. Like we were looking into a place we weren't supposed to see. "How did you learn all this?" I asked. "I'm good with computers." Something about the way she said it reminded me of Noah. Over the next hour, she showed me more. How the network worked, how everything was hidden behind layers of encryption. how people used usernames instead of real identities. The deeper we went, the stranger it felt. Eventually, I stepped back. "I think that's enough." She laughed. "Too weird for you?" "A little." She closed the laptop. "Most people can't handle it." For the next few weeks, we kept seeing each other. But something had changed. The more time I spent with Lena, the more I realized how deep she was involved with that world. She stayed up all night browsing hidden forums. Encrypted messages would appear on her phone. Sometimes she'd disappear for hours without explanation. Eventually, I asked her about it. "Why do you spend so much time there?" She looked at me like the answer was obvious. "Because that's where the real internet is." That answer didn't sit right with me. And slowly, things started falling apart. We argued more about the dark web, about the strange people she talked to online, about how secretive everything felt. One night, it finally boiled over. "You're paranoid," she said. "I'm careful," I replied. She shook her head. "You just don't understand how the world actually works." Maybe she was right. But something about that whole hidden network made my instincts scream. A few days later, we broke up. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling, just a quiet realization that whatever world she lived in, I didn't belong in it. By August, I had moved into my college dorm. New city, new classes, new life. For a while, I didn't think about Lena, or the dark web, or Noah Whitaker. But one night during my second semester, I couldn't sleep. It was nearly 3 a.m. My roommate was snoring. The campus was quiet. And for some reason, I remembered the browser Lena had installed on her laptop. Curiosity got the better of me, so I downloaded it. At first, I just browsed the same kinds of sites she had shown me. Forums, hidden chat rooms, strange marketplaces, nothing too extreme. But the deeper I explored, the darker things started to get. Eventually, I stumbled across a page that looked different from the others. A black screen, a countdown timer, and a message underneath it. "Live event. Starting soon." Curious, I clicked it. The stream loaded slowly. Grainy camera, a dimly lit room. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then someone stepped into frame. My stomach dropped. Because for a brief moment, the camera focused on his face. And I recognized him instantly. It was Noah Whitaker, the friend who had disappeared 3 years earlier. And, according to the title above the stream, he was being sold. Part 3. The auction. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. The live stream buffered slightly, the grainy image stuttering as the connection caught up. The camera showed a dim concrete room lit by a single hanging light bulb. The walls looked unfinished, like some kind of basement or warehouse. And sitting in a metal chair in the middle of the room was Noah Whitaker. My heart started pounding so hard, it felt like it might wake my roommate across the dorm room. It couldn't be him. It had to be someone who just looked like him. 3 years had passed since Noah disappeared. People change, faces change. But the longer I stared at the screen, the more certain I became. The same messy dark hair, the same narrow jawline, even the small scar above his left eyebrow from when we were 12. and he wiped out riding Marcus's dirt bike. It was him, but he looked different, thinner, pale. His wrists were zip-tied to the arms of the chair, and his eyes looked hollow. Above the video feed, a message scrolled across the screen. Live auction starting. My stomach twisted. At first I thought maybe it was some kind of sick joke, a prank, some messed up performance video. Then a chat window appeared next to the stream. Usernames started flooding in, strings of random letters and numbers. People from all over the world typing messages. A countdown timer hit 0. The camera zoomed slightly closer to Noah's face. Someone stepped into frame behind him. You couldn't see their face, just black gloves. A distorted voice came through the speakers. "Welcome." The voice sounded electronically altered, cold. "Tonight's listing is a verified item." The camera tilted Noah's chin upward so the viewers could see his face clearly. Healthy male, skilled with computers. The chat exploded with messages. Numbers started appearing in the corner of the screen. At first, I didn't understand what they meant. Then I realized. They were bids. People were bidding on him. My hands started shaking. I scrolled through the chat, hoping someone else would call this out as fake. But no one did. Instead, people were asking questions. Does he know programming? Can he travel? Proof he's real? The gloved hand slapped Noah lightly across the cheek. "Responsive," the distorted voice said. Noah didn't fight. He barely even reacted. He just stared at the floor. The number in the corner climbed higher. Thousands of dollars. My chest tightened. I wanted to do something, call the police, report the site. But the address was a long string of random characters. The network was encrypted, anonymous. By the time authorities could even figure out what they were looking at, this stream would be gone, and Noah would disappear again. Then something happened. For a split second, Noah lifted his head, and he looked directly at the camera, at the viewers, at me. I don't know if he actually saw anything through that lens, but in that moment, it felt like he was looking straight at me. The stream cut out suddenly. The page refreshed, and the auction listing vanished. Just like that. I sat frozen in my chair. My roommate shifted in his bed behind me. Outside the dorm window, the campus was silent, but my mind was racing. I had just seen my missing best friend alive, and someone out there was selling him. I refreshed the page again. Nothing. The site had moved on to other listings. I searched the forums for hours that night, trying to find the auction again, trying to find the seller. Anything. Eventually, I found a small thread buried deep in a marketplace forum. Someone had mentioned the same live stream. They posted the seller's username. Just one word. Broker 9. Below that were comments discussing the price. The final number made my stomach drop. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. Whoever bought Noah had already taken him, and I had no idea where he was now. For the next week, I barely slept. I kept returning to the dark web forums every night. Searching, reading, watching. Eventually, I realized something terrifying. There were entire marketplaces dedicated to human trafficking, hidden auctions, private contracts, encrypted delivery networks, and people were making massive amounts of money doing it. That's when a horrible idea started forming in my head. If I couldn't find Noah, maybe I could find the people who had taken him. And the only way to do that was to go deeper into the same world they operated in. I needed money, a lot of it, because the only language these people seemed to understand was payment. After weeks of lurking on the forums, I found something. A job listing. It was vague, anonymous, but the payment amount was huge. The description simply said, "Courier needed. Digital package delivery. No questions." The location was listed as a nearby city. The payment was in cryptocurrency, and it was enough money to change everything. My instinct screamed not to touch it. But every time I thought about backing out, I remembered Noah's face on that live stream. So I responded. A few hours later, I received encrypted instructions, a pickup location, a drop-off point, and a warning. Do not open the package. The pickup location was a locker at a bus station. Inside was a small sealed drive, probably just data, stolen files, corporate secrets, maybe worse. I didn't want to know. I followed the instructions exactly. 2 hours later, I left the drive in another locker across the city. That night, the payment arrived in my digital wallet. More money than I had ever held before. But it wasn't enough. So I did another job, then another, each one riskier than the last. Encrypted packages, anonymous drops, no questions asked. Every time I told myself it was the last one. Every time I remembered Noah sitting in that chair. And I kept going. Months passed. By the end of my sophomore year, I had enough money. Enough to bid in one of those auctions, enough to finally enter the same marketplace where Noah had been sold. I logged in late one night, hands shaking, heart racing, scrolling through listings that made my skin crawl. Then I saw something that froze me in place. A familiar username. Broker9, the same seller. Another live stream scheduled, another human auction. But when I opened the listing, Noah wasn't there. Someone else was. And that's when I realized something. If I couldn't buy Noah back directly, I might still be able to find the people who had taken him. I placed a bid, not because I wanted the person on that screen, but because buying them might be the only way to get close enough to rescue my best friend. Part 4. The trade. Once you step into that world, there's no clean way back out. That was something I had learned slowly over the months I spent drifting through dark web forums and marketplaces. Every anonymous username, every encrypted message, every strange delivery job pulled me deeper into a network built entirely on secrecy. But by the time I placed my bid in Broker9's auction, I had stopped worrying about getting out. I only cared about one thing: finding Noah. The live stream auction looked almost identical to the one I had seen months earlier. Same dim concrete room, same camera angle, same single light bulb swaying slightly from the ceiling, like the place had no real electricity, just a generator somewhere in the background. But the person tied to the chair this time wasn't Noah. He looked younger, early 20s maybe, bruised, terrified, duct tape across his mouth. His hands were zip-tied behind the chair. My stomach turned watching it. The chat on the side of the screen filled rapidly with usernames and numbers. Bidding started immediately. 10,000, 15, 20, each number appearing instantly in the corner of the stream. I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't here because I wanted the person on that screen. I was here because the seller was the same one who had sold Noah. Broker 9. Whoever ran that account clearly had access to the same network that had taken my best friend years earlier. If I could get close to them, even once, I might finally get a lead. The bidding climbed higher. 25,000, 30, 32. Then it slowed. I waited until the last second. My hands were shaking slightly as I typed. Then I placed a massive bid, far higher than anyone else had offered. The number appeared on screen. The chat froze. For several seconds, no one responded. Then a message appeared from the host. Broker 9. Serious buyer. A few other bidders tried raising the price, but they stopped quickly. The final message appeared across the screen. Sold. My chest tightened as the stream ended. Seconds later, a private message appeared. Broker 9. Payment confirmed. Exchange location will be sent shortly. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. I had just bought someone on the dark web. It felt wrong in every possible way. But I kept reminding myself, this was the only way inside their operation. The next message arrived 2 minutes later. Meeting location, abandoned warehouse district outside Cleveland. Time, midnight. 2 nights from now. Rules. Buyer comes alone. Simple, cold, professional. Which meant they had done this before, probably hundreds of times. But they were about to make one mistake, because they assumed I was alone. I wasn't. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first one was Marcus. He answered immediately. Ryan, everything okay? I found him. Silence filled the phone. Then Marcus said quietly, You mean Noah? Yes. Another pause. Then his voice changed instantly. When do we move? The second call was Dylan. He didn't even ask questions. He just said, Send me the location. 2 days later, we met just outside Cleveland. It had been years since we had all stood in the same place. Marcus looked older, rougher around the edges. Dylan was bigger than I remembered, broad shoulders from years of manual work. But the moment we stood together again, it felt like high school hadn't been that long ago. Except now we were preparing to walk into a human trafficking exchange. I explained the plan. They're bringing the guy I bought, I said. But more importantly, they're bringing themselves. Marcus leaned against the hood of his truck. And you're thinking we follow them back to wherever they came from. Exactly. Dylan crossed his arms. You're assuming they lead us to the rest of the operation. They will, I said. People like this don't keep victims where they sell them. Too risky. Marcus smirked slightly. So we buy our way in, then hunt them down. Pretty much. Dylan nodded once. Good enough for me. Midnight came fast. The warehouse district looked like something straight out of a crime movie. Rows of abandoned factories, broken windows, rusting fences, streetlights that barely worked. The kind of place where no one would hear you scream. Marcus and Dylan parked 2 blocks away, watching, waiting. I walked alone toward the meeting point. At exactly midnight, headlights appeared at the far end of the lot. A black cargo van rolled slowly toward me. It stopped about 20 feet away. The side door slid open. 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark clothing and masks. One of them dragged someone behind him. The same person from the live stream. Still bound. Still terrified. The second man spoke. "You the buyer?" His voice was calm, businesslike. I nodded. He held out a phone. "Show confirmation." I opened my wallet transaction and showed him the payment. He glanced at it for 2 seconds, then tossed me a small key. Locker 4. Keys for restraints. Just like that. The exchange was complete. They shoved the captive toward me and turned back toward the van. No conversation, no hesitation. Just another business transaction finished. But as they climbed back inside the van, Marcus's voice whispered through the earpiece, hidden under my collar. "We're on them." Because when I sent the payment earlier that week, I hadn't just sent cryptocurrency. I had embedded a tiny tracking script inside the encrypted message attached to the transaction. A trick Noah had once shown me years ago in his basement. Something designed to silently tag the receiving device. Meaning, wherever Broker 9's laptop or phone went, we could follow. The van pulled out slowly. Marcus followed from a distance. Dylan circled the block in another direction. Meanwhile, I turned back to the guy I had purchased. He looked terrified. I unlocked the restraints quickly. "You're free," I told him. He stared at me. "You're not with them?" "No." "Then why did you—" "Because someone they took is my friend." He looked confused, then whispered something that made my blood run cold. "They keep others." My heart skipped. "Where?" "Another building, underground." I heard them talking. Marcus's voice crackled through my earpiece again. "They're stopping." "Where?" "Old steel factory by the river." Dylan added, "I'm already close." That was it. We moved. The factory was massive, half collapsed. Rusting metal beams everywhere. But faint light glowed from inside. Marcus parked 2 blocks away. We approached on foot, quiet, careful. Through a cracked window, we saw them. 3 men inside. One of the masked guys from the van. Another man sitting at a laptop. And along the far wall, metal cages. My chest tightened. There were several people inside them. Then I saw him. Messy dark hair, thin, but unmistakable. Noah Whitaker. Marcus whispered, "That's him?" I nodded slowly. Dylan clenched his jaw. "Then let's finish this." Marcus kicked the side door open. The sound echoed through the building. The traffickers barely had time to react. Dylan tackled the guy at the laptop. Marcus slammed the masked man into a table. I rushed the third guy before he could grab something from his waistband. The fight lasted maybe 20 seconds. None of them expected resistance. They were businessmen. Cowards hiding behind encryption. Within moments, they were tied up using their own restraints. Marcus smashed the laptop. Dylan grabbed the keys. One by one, we opened the cages. When I unlocked Noah's, he stared at me like he couldn't process what he was seeing. "Ryan?" I smiled. "Yeah." For a second, he didn't move. Then he grabbed me and pulled me into a hug so tight it knocked the air out of me. "You actually found me." Marcus laughed behind us. "Took him long enough." Dylan helped the others out of their cages. Most of them could barely walk. We guided them outside and called the police anonymously from a burner phone. By the time authorities arrived, the traffickers were tied up inside their own operation. Their laptops destroyed. Their victims gone. Broker Nine's entire network disappeared from the dark web within days. Accounts vanished, servers wiped, like they had never existed. But Noah was alive. That's all that mattered. A few weeks later, we sat together at a quiet diner. Just like old times, Noah looked healthier already, though the experience had clearly changed him. I asked the question that had been bothering me since the rescue. Why did they take you in the first place? Noah stirred his coffee slowly. Because of something I found online. Marcus frowned. Like what? Noah looked up at us. Remember when I showed you guys the deep web back in high school? Yeah, I said. You told us people could disappear there. He nodded slowly. Well, I've found something else. What? He leaned forward slightly. There are hidden networks even deeper than the dark web. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You're telling me it gets worse? Noah gave a tired smile. Not worse. More powerful. He looked at me. Places where information about criminals gets traded anonymously. Dylan frowned. Like bounty hunting? Noah nodded. Something like that. Then he said something that stuck with me. People think the dark web only protects criminals. He shook his head. But sometimes, it helps people hunt them too. And after everything we went through, I realized something. The internet had taken Noah away from us once. But in the end, it also helped bring him back. Part 5. 1 year later. A year passed after the night we pulled Noah out of that factory. Life didn't magically go back to normal. Things like that change people. The police investigation lasted months. The traffickers we captured turned out to be part of a much larger network, operating across multiple states. Because we tipped off authorities anonymously, our names never appeared publicly in the case. Officially, the story was that an anonymous source tipped off law enforcement. Unofficially, the three of us knew the truth. Marcus went back to Pittsburgh and kept working construction. Dylan finished his degree and started coaching high school football. I stayed in college trying to focus on finishing my computer science program. And Noah disappeared again. But this time, it was by choice. About 3 months after we rescued him, he told me he had accepted a job. He couldn't tell me where. He couldn't tell me who for. But he did say something that made a lot of sense. People like Broker 9 don't work alone, he told me one night. We were sitting in a quiet diner not far from campus. The same kind of diner we used to hang out in back in Blackridge. There are entire networks out there, Noah continued. Thousands of people. Buyers, sellers, brokers. I nodded. I figured. He stirred his coffee slowly. And someone needs to hunt them. That was the last real conversation we had before he left. He gave me a number I could text if something serious ever happened. But he warned me I probably wouldn't hear from him much. And he was right. Months passed with nothing. Life moved forward again, or at least it tried to. But sometimes late at night, I'd still find myself scrolling through the dark web forums out of habit. Not participating, just watching. Making sure I never saw another auction like the one that had changed everything. Then about a year after the rescue, something strange happened. I received a message. It came through the encrypted platform Noah had set up on my laptop before he left. Just a single line. You might want to see this. Attached was a link. I hesitated before clicking it. Part of me didn't want to go back into that world again. But curiosity won. The link opened a hidden forum I had never seen before. The page was simple. Black background, white text. At the top was a headline. Broker 9 Network dismantled. Below it was a thread filled with anonymous posts from people celebrating. Apparently, the trafficking ring we exposed had been connected to dozens of others. And over the past year, they had all been taken down, one by one. Servers seized, accounts destroyed, people arrested. Someone had systematically dismantled the entire operation. Then I noticed a comment near the bottom of the thread. A username I recognized immediately. Whitaker_404. The message read, "Told you there were places online where monsters can be found." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Somewhere out there, Noah Whitaker was still exploring the deepest parts of the internet. But this time, he wasn't looking for secrets. He was hunting the people who thought they could hide in the dark.